What does it actually take to remake an entire industry? It's a huge question. Well, sometimes, believe it or not, it takes a tragedy. Today, we're going to dive into this incredible story of how a deadly crisis forced a whole nation to completely rethink the very idea of competence, creating a blueprint that would literally change everything.
So let's set the scene. Before 1994, the construction industry in Malaysia had this huge, dangerous, systemic problem. The bottom line was, it was filled with incompetent workers. And that led to all sorts of issues: defective materials, constant accidents on site. The whole thing was, frankly, a ticking time bomb.
And then the bomb went off. Look, this wasn't just some small issue. This was a blueprint for disaster, and it was about to demand a brand new foundation for the entire country's industry.
In 1993, the unthinkable happened. The Highland Towers collapse became this massive national tragedy, and it just ripped the curtain back, exposing how deep the cracks in the industry really were. The government's response, to their credit, was swift. They formed the Construction Industry Development Board, or CIDB, to regulate the whole sector and make sure nothing like this could ever happen again.
So on the surface, CIDB's mission seemed pretty straightforward, right? They were going to bring some order to all this chaos. They would register every single contractor, accredit all the personnel, and approve any materials coming into the country. The thinking was, okay, only qualified people and safe materials on every job site. Makes sense, a logical first step.
Well, you'd think that would fix it. But here's the thing, it didn't. Despite all these new rules and a big push for more training, the real core problem of incompetence, it just refused to go away. The industry was still plagued by costly reworks, safety problems, and even fatalities.
So you gotta ask, right? If they're regulating everything and pushing for all this training, why are things still going so wrong? The answer? Well, it reveals a much deeper issue than anybody realized at first. So, people started digging, and reports between 2012 and 2014 started to paint a pretty grim picture. The training that was being offered, it was mostly just theory, classroom stuff. It had almost no practical use on a real job site. On top of that, employers didn't really care about it, the certifications were seen as pretty low quality, and get this, even the workers who did get trained often couldn't actually do the job up to standard.
And then, a 2017 CIDB report just blew the whole thing wide open. It revealed the true systemic chaos. I mean, nothing was standardized. What one company called a supervisor, another might call a kapala, which just means head. There were no standard levels of competence, no consistent way to even assess someone's skills, and absolutely zero process to check if the assessments were even done right.
And here's the scale of that chaos we're talking about. 1.4 million workers, an entire workforce operating without a shared language for skill, for quality, or for safety. I mean, how do you even start to fix a problem that big when you can't even agree on what good looks like?
Okay, so this is where our story takes a really interesting turn. CIDB basically put out a call for help, and one company, Savasni, came back with this completely counterintuitive idea. They said, look, your problem isn't a lack of training, it's a lack of a system.
See, while pretty much everyone else was just focused on offering more of the same broken training, Savasni took a huge step back. They argued that instead of just treating the symptoms, you had to cure the disease, and that meant building an entire competence system right from scratch. Their solution was this big idea they called the National Competency Ecosystem. Now, I know that sounds a little corporate and jargony, but hang with me. This wasn't just another training course. This was a master plan to build the very foundation that was missing: a single, unified way to define, assess, and then verify what competent actually means for every single job in the whole industry. So how in the world do you build an entire ecosystem from nothing? Well, Savasni's whole approach was built on these three massive foundational pillars, all of them designed to create a truly competent workforce from the ground up. Okay, so first, they created one single competency blueprint to standardize every job. Simple. Second, for each of those jobs, they defined exactly what good performance looks like. And third, and you guys, this was the secret sauce, the absolute genius move. They stopped focusing on training the workers and instead created a system to train and certify the certifiers, the assessors, the verifiers, the instructors, the very people who would uphold the new standards for the whole country.
And that first step, the blueprint, wow, it was a complete game changer. All that guesswork was just gone. Vague titles like cupola were out,
replaced by this universal system with clearly defined job titles and competence levels, from 1 to 5. For the very first time, everybody in the industry was finally speaking the same language.
Okay, so it all sounds great on paper, right? But the million-dollar question is always, did it actually work? Well, let me tell you, the results really do speak for themselves. This system had a massive national impact.
Let's start with the client themselves, right? CIDB's own senior general manager confirmed it. He said this blueprint became the single most important document they used to plan out all of their competency and training activities. So this wasn't some report that just sat on a shelf. It became the very core of how they operated. And this is where you see the real ripple effect. Sabasni's system wasn't just another optional program you could take. No, it became the official gateway. CIDB made these certifications a mandatory prerequisite for anyone who wanted to become one of their accredited assessors or instructors.
So think about that. The system gets adopted as the national standard, which is huge in itself. But it didn't stop there. This new, incredibly robust framework for certifying people was a major reason why CIDB was able to achieve the prestigious ISO 17024 international accreditation in 2023. That gave Malaysia's entire construction industry brand new credibility on the world stage.
And the praise just kept coming. The deputy CEO of CIDB Holdings, that's their commercial arm, publicly recommended Sabasni to any other organization out there looking for, and I'm quoting, proven excellence in building these kinds of systems. I mean, that is a massive vote of confidence.
So when you step back and you look at this whole journey, from total chaos and tragedy to a globally recognized system, what's the ultimate lesson here? What's the big takeaway from this incredible story?
It really comes down to this simple but incredibly powerful idea, which is actually Sabasni's own motto, Fructus Perperitium. It's Latin for results through competence. And it's just this profound reminder that real, lasting change, whether you're talking about safer buildings or a stronger industry, it doesn't come from just throwing more training at a problem. It comes from building a true, deeply embedded system of competence.